Hello friends, welcome back. UFC Mexico. I know this one's coming late. I don't even want to hear anything though. I'm just about to get right into it, obviously starting off with the earliest of prelims and ending with the main event. Some interesting matchups here. I think there's some things that people maybe haven't talked about. I guess that's the benefit of this video coming so late, is there's actually one update specifically with the Edgar Chavez fight that is interesting, you know. But I'm just going to hop straight into it. Starting off with Muhammad Naimov, the upsetter I like to call him, Mr. Upset, versus Erik Silva. I think this one, I'm going with Muhammad Naimov straight off the bat. I'll get to the physical stats in a second, but actually I'm going to start off with the physical stats and then I'll get into Muhammad Naimov a little bit. I'm going with Muhammad Naimov, but I have some things to say about him because I've actually watched all of his fights. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but his debut fight against Jamie Mullarkey, very interesting. That was kind of like, not the start of the downfall of Jamie Mullarkey. It wasn't the start, but that was like when I started to really think like, fuck, I can't be picking this man Jamie anymore. But then I continued and, hey, it's okay. So Muhammad Naimov is coming into this fight at 29 years old. He stands 5 foot 9 inches tall. He has a 70-inch reach matched up to Erik Silva, who is 36 years old, 7 years older, 5 foot 9 inches tall, and has a 71-inch reach. He has a 1-inch reach advantage. Muhammad Naimov is 10-2 in his professional career. 2 of those wins have come in the UFC. He has not lost in the UFC. Erik Silva matches up at 9-2 with just 1 loss in his 1 UFC outing. Muhammad Naimov, man, he has knockout power, and he has, in the weirdest way, he has heart because of like his like cheating. You know, he doesn't want to lose. He really does not want to fucking lose, so he cheats. He'll cheat. He will cheat. And I'm not going to get too much into that. Everyone's already talked that to death, really, the cheating, specifically with the Nathaniel Wood fight. It wasn't really present in the Jamie Mullarkey fight for kind of other reasons, but the cheating aside, what I want to talk about, and what I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, is Muhammad Naimov in both of his fights, in Jamie Mullarkey, his debut, and in his Nathaniel Wood fight, his previous fight, he's been put in trouble. He's been put in trouble. His chin is not like cracked. I'm not going to say he's chinny, but it's suspect. Like, it's really suspect. We have to worry about it, actually. I think not a lot of people are worrying about it. I'm worried about it. I'm very worried about his fucking chin. You know, Muhammad Naimov, crazy upset over this man, Jamie Mullarkey. I picked him in that fight, and he came back. Jamie Mullarkey, I thought, was winning that fight, and then he just got fucking one-shot. Just brutal. You know, what can you do about that? Erik Silva, on the other hand, started his UFC career late. Does not impress me at all. You know, he is a Dana White Contender Series graduate, and Muhammad Naimov, funnily enough, lost on Dana White Contender Series. There's a spooky age gap. It's just, also, something to note about Erik Silva's Dana White Contender Series win, he was over a dude who was 3-0. Like, take that as you will. This man Muhammad Naimov, I'm picking him, like I said, ultimately, but it's spooky. It's not spooky hours, but I'm really not even the most confident in Muhammad Naimov. I think he's probably going to get it done maybe by, like, later KO, TKO, or decision, but, like, it's spooky, man. It's spooky. This might be the time that Muhammad Naimov just gets caught, for real, on the chin. He has a lot of room for improvement, you know, and I don't say that as, like, oh, I'm fucking better than him or I'm a coach in any sense, but it's just, there's a bit of just his style that leaves me unsatisfied when I watch. Like, it was tough. It was tough. I picked him in the Nathaniel Wood fight, though. I learned my lesson about the fucking Jamie Mullarkey shit, man. Jamie Mullarkey, rest in peace. Anyways, I digress. Moving on to Victor Altamirano versus Felipe dos Santos. An interesting fight. Victor Altamirano, not going to violate or trash the man, you know, an interesting fighter. Interesting style, I should say. That's what I mean by that. I don't think that interesting is going to translate to, like, good or imposing in this fight. Not at all. Quite on the contrary, actually. I think Felipe dos Santos is going to take this fight just because of what he showed us that he could do. He had an insanely tall order fighting Manel Kape, I think, on short notice, you know, and while he lost, he didn't get dominated. He didn't get blown out of the water, you know. And so for a dude after that, that's now currently 7-1, I guess 7-0 before that, like, that's, if anything, impressive. That's good. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign, and that's why I'm going with Felipe dos Santos. Felipe dos Santos is coming into this fight at 23 years old. He's a young man, 5'7" tall, 70-inch reach, matching up with Victor at 33 years old, 5'8" and a 70-inch reach as well. So physically, besides the age gap, they're pretty evenly matched up. And 33 isn't old, but the 10-year age gap is obviously spooky a little bit. Victor is 12-3. He's 2-2 in the UFC compared to Felipe, who's 7-1, and he's lost his only UFC outing versus Manel Kape. So insanely tall order to fight Manel Kape on your debut on short notice, I think it was. I think Felipe dos Santos is just, he literally is the more technical fighter. I just think it's going to come down to that. I don't think Victor's style will help him in any sense here. In any sense. Ultimately strange, but a mid-style type shit. So the pick is Felipe dos Santos. We move on type shit. God. To kind of spooky hours. I'm not going to lie. This one's almost spooky hours. Luis Lazy Boy Rodriguez versus Dennis Psycho Bondar. Kind of, it's spooky that I'm back and forth on this one because I don't particularly like Luis Rodriguez. Off rip, just have to say, Dennis Bondar got mollywopped in his last fight. Like, actually really bad. I remember watching that and I was like, at the time I was like, this might be one of the most brutal finishes I've ever seen. But like, it was extremely brutal. That's not to take away from it. I remember there was like some controversy around it. Like, something happened. That's what I mean by controversy. Something happened, like the ref had to step in, and it wasn't even like a label to finish or something. Like, but I'm going, I think, with Dennis Bondar because despite that, just like on the eye test, I think just Dennis Bondar is going to take Luis Rodriguez. That's just what I think. Now, Luis Rodriguez, God forbid he fucking catches this man Dennis Bondar with some spooky shit, but will he? Probably not. I don't think he'll do enough to put himself in that situation where he can catch Dennis Bondar like that. I'm praying to God that Dennis Bondar, though, is not changed by his previous fight, because that was spooky. You know, Dennis Bondar is 31 years old. He stands 5'6" tall. He has a 69-inch reach, matched up to Luis Rodriguez, who's 7 years younger at 24 years old, 5'6" tall, and a 65-inch reach. So 4-inch reach advantage for my boy Dennis. I just think Luis it's way too early for him in the UFC. And funny as that sounds, because he's 15-2. You know, that's not like a novice record. Particularly, but the dudes that he's been fighting are not, they're not indicative of like moving up in level. Like he's kind of grinding them out, if you get what I'm saying. If you look at his previous record, specifically in the promotion that he's been recently fighting in, where he's picked up 5 wins, I believe, it's questionable. It's not its legitimacy. Like, obviously he's really fighting, but the level of opponents, the level of competition is unusual. You know, we can say that. So I think ultimately I am going to go with Dennis Bondar. I'm going with Dennis Bondar. If he is just changed from his last fight, it will make sense. I'll take that. I'm willing to take that, actually. I kind of put the seal on it. Moving on to spooky hours, but it's going to be ultimately an emotional, not fully emotional, but a majority emotional pick. Claudio, the Prince of Peru, Puelles versus Faraz Siam. My Peruvian brother, Claudio Puelles, please hit the mitts. You gotta hit the mitts, brother. Oh, fuck. You know, Claudio Puelles' striking leaves a lot to be desired. I'm not going to trash the man, especially not one of my Peruvian brothers, but And his grappling, obviously, I've said it before. You know, this is one of those dudes that has to be respected on the ground. All that good stuff. He's dangerous. He's a shark. You know, and the ground is an ocean. Blah, 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 all that good stuff. But the reality of the matter is, Claudio's striking really needs work. It needs work. And for Ferraciem is not too shabby with the striking. Ultimately, though, I'm a ride with Claudio. Like, this is the fooly pick. This is the silly pick. This is the silly pick. Like, if you were looking for actual insight on this one, I'm sorry. This time, it's not for you. But Claudio Puelles, I think, is a bigger threat than people are giving him credit for, despite the striking. Like, you know, I think he can make up for it, really, with the grappling, possibly. And he's very young. Claudio Puelles is 27. You know, I think he has time to improve if he really dedicates to it. There is that actual chance for notable improvement in his skill set. He's coming into this fight 12-3. He's 5-2 in the UFC. The UFC has given him favorable matchups, but not just gimme fights. They haven't been straight up gimme fights. You know, I don't agree with that narrative, kind of. Ferraciem is 14-4. I'm just gonna go with Claudio, man. I'm riding with Claudio. If I look like a fool, it is what it is. Spooky Hours, emotional pick as well. We move on, though. Let's just move on to something that actually, a fight that actually it benefits me, that the video is kind of late, you know. Not necessarily worth it, but it is a little bit more information that you might not have heard of. But so, Edgar Chavez versus Daniel Lacerda. I believe yesterday I saw this, so Thursday. But Daniel Lacerda apparently was on track to miss weight, not make weight. He was on track to miss weight. I think by a pound or two, they said. But, so in advance, they told Edgar Chavez to stop cutting weight preemptively because they knew his opponent wasn't going to make weight. The funny thing about that is, I'm not remembering it correctly. If you go to my community section in my YouTube channel, I'll try to find it and post just a screenshot of the original post. I'm pretty sure it was from the Full Send MMA YouTube account, from their community section. But Edgar Chavez was told to stop cutting weight, apparently, around 131 pounds. Very interesting. I was going with Edgar Chavez already off rip, honestly. Just because I don't think Daniel Lacerda is the best fighter, honestly, and I think that Edgar Chavez is not overrated, but he is better than Lacerda. You know, they're having a rematch. A lot of people know this, but if you don't know this, Edgar Chavez and Daniel Lacerda fought previously. Edgar Chavez basically slept Daniel Lacerda with a standing guillotine. It's either that or, like some people say, Daniel Lacerda faked going to sleep to try to get him to ease up or whatever dumb shit. And then the ref stepped in, obviously, and broke up the submission. And then Daniel Lacerda kind of fully came to and was like, oh, hey, what's going on? What happened? But yeah, anyways, I'm going with Edgar Chavez in this one. You know, maybe even in a similar fashion. But the weight cutting stuff aside, I think it's just going to be super calm for my boy Edgar Chavez. That's pretty calm. Moving on. Kind of going through these picks a little fast, but it's just because of the late recording. Moving on to, not spooky hours, but I just have a strange feeling about this one. Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonça. Now, Jesus Aguilar had a good knockout of Shannon Ross. You know, I say good because it was spectacular. It was good to watch, but if you dissect that, you might not be too impressed. And I'll leave it at that. Jesus Aguilar is coming into this fight at 27 years old. He's deceptively young. That dude, I always think that guy looks like 35 or some shit. Maybe like 40 to me. Maybe I'm just a tweaker. He's a small guy, kind of, at 5'4" with a 62-inch reach, very short reach. He's 9-2, 1-1 in the UFC. Mateus Mendonça is 2 years younger at 25 years old, 2 inches taller at 5'6" tall, and he has a 71.5-inch reach. So a 9.5-inch reach advantage for this man. Mateus Mendonça, which is absolutely nutty, and that's a good that's not the majority reason, but that's a decent reason why I'm picking Mateus Mendonça to get this one done, even though he's shown us that he might be a tweaker. That he might straight up be a tweaker. I don't think he's going to tweak against Jesus Aguilar, and I don't think Jesus Aguilar is going to be able to Shannon Ross this guy, essentially. You know, like, just take him out. Like, going with Mateus, I'm fairly confident in that. Mateus is 10-2. He's 0-2 in the UFC, but we'll give him a pass. We'll give him a pass, you know. We'll give him a pass. Moving on. Christian Quinones versus Raoni Barcelos. This is a fight that originally I was going with Christian Quinones, but you gotta think that one again if you're actually considering him. And I say this, I feel like that choice of words might come back to haunt me. But Christian defensively is not there. He is not there at all on the feet. Like, he's open to get cracked crazy, and that's usually what happens. That's actually usually what sets up his finishes in any sense. Like, it's super tough, man. He leaves his head and his chin out, and people find it. They find it. They fucking find it. This man, Mr. Perfect, found his chin. Like, snapped his head around. And then submitted him. And I think Raoni Barcelos is going to find his chin. Raoni Barcelos is much older. He's coming into this fight at 36 years old. He's 5'8". He is 72-inch reach. Christian is 9 years younger at 27 years old. Same height at 5'8" with a 2-inch shorter reach at 70 inches. And I think that's not good for Christian at all. Like, if anything, he needs the reach advantage over dudes to do well. He does have a lot of finishes, but these finishes, I don't know, like, I'm not going to even go into Christian Quinones' record a little bit. I just think that Raoni Barcelos literally beats him most of the time. Most of the time, he's going to catch the chin of Christian Quinones and put him away, I think. You know, Christian Quinones is actually not horrible. It's just the defense. It's literally the holes in his defense that is ultimately his downfall, because it leads to him getting finished. Christian Quinones does mix in a lot of grappling, a lot of takedown attempts, and he sometimes gets them. You know, and it's just the fact that he mixes them in that's pretty good, but I don't see him being able to pull off that kind of style, that game plan fully against Raoni. I just think that it's too dangerous. He's going to get caught. He's going to get caught. He's been caught before in kind of every level of competition, pretty much. So Raoni Barcelos is the pick. Moving on to not a spooky hours fight, but a really good fight. It's going to be really good, I think. Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. Now, Chris Duncan, I just don't see him getting this one done. I really don't. Manuel Torres is a dangerous dude who finishes people. He's a prolific finisher. He's not only on a 5-fight win streak, he's on a 5-fight finish streak. Okay? I think 2 KO, TKOs, and 3 subs. Like, he finishes people. And 2 of those, his last 2, in the UFC. Manuel Torres comes into this fight at 28 years old, 5'10" inches tall, with a 73-inch reach. He has a really good frame. Chris Duncan matches up 2 years older at 30 years old, 5'10" inches tall, with 71.5-inch reach. So a 1.5-inch reach advantage for Manuel Torres. They're the same height. Manuel is 14-2. He's 2-0 in the UFC, like I alluded to before. Chris Duncan is 11-1 and also 2-0 in the UFC. I'm tweaking. I think I tweaked out a little bit, but anyways. Excuse me. I just think Manuel Torres is going to get this one done. He's too dangerous on the feet. There's too much of a difference between the levels of striking with Manuel Torres and Chris Duncan, because Manuel Torres has good technique and also power. You know, he's a prolific finisher. I think he's going to find the finish against Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan maybe catches Manuel perfectly, like rolls the natural 20, just catches him like crazy. I just don't see him getting this one done. I do think it's going to be a good fight, though. Maybe Chris Duncan, I think, will survive. Maybe he gets in a good little shot on Manuel. Just to maybe, like, looks dangerous at least until it ends, you know? Something like that. I just think Manuel has a better chance anywhere this fight is, really. You know, out of Manuel's 14 wins, 13 of them are finishes. 13 of them are finishes. Two of those finishes in the UFC. It's spooky, man. But Manuel's the pick here. Fairly confident in Manuel. Moving on to a women's fight. Excuse me, I just lost my train of thought. Moving on to a women's fight. Sam Hughes versus Yasmin Hauigiri. I feel like I forgot how to pronounce her last name, even though I was just like, anyways. Versus Yasmin. Okay. I'm going with Yasmin. Despite Yasmin getting brutally finished in her last fight, if you know her opponent, Denise Gomez, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's not going to be the last finish that Denise catches like that, for real. Like, Denise knocks chicks out. Yasmin is good. She's young. I think she's going to come back from that win. Hopefully. Hopefully she's not changed. Sam Hughes, much older. Sam Hughes is coming into this fight at 31 years old, 5'5", and she has a 64.5-inch reach. Yasmin is 24 years old. She stands 5'3", so 2 inches shorter, and has a half-inch reach. Disadvantage, you could say, at 64 inches. Yasmin is 10-1. She's 2-1 in the UFC. She was just handed her first loss of her professional career, obviously from the hands of Denise Gomez, literally. And Sam Hughes is 8-5, and she's 3-4 in her UFC career. Now, Sam Hughes does have, like, you know, win over Elise Reed, you know, stuff like that, but I don't think I can pick her over Yasmin. Again, if you know, you know, from this fight, from the type of fight that this is, anything could happen. We'll say, I'm going to leave it at that, okay? I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm going with Yasmin. Moving on. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Pretty Ricky Tercios. Great nickname. I wish I could say the same about him as a fighter, but it's tough. He's not too far off, but ultimately I have to go with Raul Rojas. Just younger, hungrier. I think he's going to bring the fight to Ricky in a way that he won't be able to handle, ultimately. And Ricky just seems fried, man. There's something tweaky about Ricky. Like, every fight, it seemed... it's not even, like, necessarily 100% negative. It's just... Ricky Tercios got a bit of the tweaker in him. Like... Raul Rosas Jr. is coming into this fight. Young lad, wee lad, 19 years old, 5'9", 67-inch reach. Matched up to Pretty Ricky, who is 30 years old, so 11 years older, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. So the 4-inch reach advantage isn't, you know, just negligible. It's not nothing. But will Ricky be able to use that to its fullest extent? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I expect Raul to actually maybe even finish Ricky by KO TKO by just swarming him and hitting him with some brute shit like he did to, I want to say his name is Terrence Mitchell. Honestly, even though Terrence Mitchell isn't the best, like I'm pretty sure Terrence Mitchell, like, only fought in, like, Alaska, and he was fighting, like, mid dudes. But anyways, that was his past fight. We're going with Raul Rosas. Moving on to spooky hours, to absolutely spooky hours, the featured fight. Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado, the street fighter, the brawler. And you know what? There is one other person picking Francisco Prado as well, and I was going to pick him regardless, but I'm going with Francisco Prado, man. Francisco Prado is a dog. He's a brawler. He has heart. Like, I like Prado. I just really like Prado. Maybe a pinch of emotion in this pick, because Daniel Zellhuber is really good. He's really good. He's dangerous. He's very technical, and he also in this fight will have an insane physical advantage over Francisco Prado. I'm gonna get to that in a second. But something about Prado I just like, man. He has heart. He's a dog. He's super young too. Francisco Prado is coming into this fight at 21 years old. Excuse me. 5'11" tall. He's actually deceptively tall. And a 69-inch reach. Daniel Zellhuber, on the other hand, 3 years older at 24 years old, 6'1" tall, and a 77-inch reach. Now, that is spooky. An 8-inch reach difference between these two fighters, and Daniel Zellhuber actually does know how to make the most of that, you know, unfortunately. And he tries to finish fights, at least somewhat. But Francisco Prado, dog. I'm going with Francisco Prado because I'm hoping that he will just close the distance, you know, hit a little bit of the Dempsey roll, and just, like, come here, get over here. Honestly, the fight might go completely the other way around, but I'm going to ride with Francisco Prado as a tasty underdog, honestly, I think, in this fight. I like Francisco Prado, and the reason why I was saying Street Fighter and Brawler is because I forget which of his fights it was, actually, but they were saying he got into fighting because he was a street fighter, like, legitimately, and I just fuck with that. Like, fuck yeah, man. Go for it. Moving on to the co-main event. Yair El Bandera Rodriguez versus Brian T-City Ortega. Spooky hours. A rematch, and I'm going with Yair. Yair, I think, is just better than Brian. He's a little younger, a little longer, a little bigger, and also the striking. Obviously, you could say that the grappling. Oh, Brian's a better grappler, despite the outcome of their last fight. But anyways, Yair, it was well known before, Mexican Taekwondo national champion type shit. His striking is on another level. He has one of the rarest knockouts in the UFC type shit. And Brian's striking defense is poor. Simple as that. Yair's coming into this fight at 31 years old. 5'11" tall, 71-inch reach compared to Brian, who is 33 years old, 5'8", and has a 68-inch reach. Yair's 18-4 with one no contest. That one no contest being against Brian T-City Ortega, I believe. Or no, it wasn't against T-City. I'm sorry. It was Jeremy Stevens, I believe. By eye gouge, I was doing it to try to remind myself. I was gouging my own eye. But he is 10-3 with one no contest in the UFC. That is Yair, he being Yair. Brian is 15-3 as a professional with one no contest. He is 7-3 with one no contest in the UFC. And I just got Yair. You know, Yair has sneaky little submissions that he can throw on you when you're hurt, when he hurts you. And I think Brian T-City Ortega is going to get hurt. I think he's going to get rocked by Yair, actually, you know? The levels of striking, it's too far apart. Fuck the grappling. Fuck the grappling. Fuck the grappling. I'm going with Yair. Moving on to the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. Now, this fight, right? I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. I feel like people are really counting out Brandon Royval, though. And it makes sense, you know, they fought before, and Pantoja obviously won versus Royval, but I picked Pantoja versus Royval. Royval actually looked scary at multiple moments of that fight. He was very scary. The scariest thing about him, though, about Royval, is that knee that he throws up the middle, man. It's terrifying, and I can't stop getting this feeling, just getting this vision of that knee, one of those knees just thrown up the middle and catching Brandon Moreno and laying him out bad. Just in a weird numbers game sense. I don't know how to explain it, really. I'm still going to go with Brandon Moreno, you know. because that's like a really specific outcome. But it's so sneaky, that knee that he throws. It's a real threat, man. The knee that he KO'd fucking Mateus Nicolau with. He caught a fucking Pantoja a couple times with it. Pantoja just stayed alive, man. It was just, I don't know. Brandon Moreno, former champion, obviously. 30 years old, 5'7", 70 inches tall, 70-inch reach. Funny enough. No, he's not 70 inches tall. But Brandon Royval, God, man, that knee is just haunting me. The possibility of that knee coming through from this man, Brandon Royval, just terrifies me. Ultimately, I gotta stay with Brandon Moreno. I think Brandon Moreno, when it comes down to just boxing, overall striking, he will have a little bit of an edge over Royval. You know, his durability, he's held up. He's held up. No one has finished Brandon Moreno. Despite his veteran career of 21 wins, 7 losses, and 2 fucking draws, no one has finished him. Royval, on the other hand, has been finished. And when it goes to decision, he hasn't been successful. It's tough. I'm scared of that knee, though. But ultimately, Brandon Moreno's going to be the pick. I'm scared of the knee, but I'm just going to keep saying that over and over. That's all it comes down to. To recap everything. God, it's so spooky, man. No, I'm sticking with Brandon Moreno. I'm not going to pick Royval. Fuck it. I'm just going to recap everything. I'm going with Muhammad Naimov, Felipe dos Santos, Dennis Bondar, Claudio Puelles, Edgar Chaves, Mateus Mendonça, Raoni Barcelos, Manuel Torres, Yasmin Jauregui. That's how you say her name. Yasmin Jauregui. Raul Rosas Jr., Francisco Prado, Yair Rodriguez, and obviously for the main event pick, Brandon Moreno. To finish this off, I will say I have been slacking, obviously, on the recap videos, but they will come out. It's a little bit too late. I guess I could address this. Obviously, my pick went through. Ilya fucking KO'd Volk. Basically, he literally finished him. It was so bad. When Volk got KO'd, it was like when you smoke like a... It was literally like he died on like some Dark Souls 3 like summon death. Like he literally just like dropped to his knees and was gone. Like it was gone. It was over, man. Faded out, like sent back to his world. Sent back to his world. It was craziness, brother. God. I mean, I picked it, and like right before the fight started, I actually said round 2 KO TKO. So I'd really called that motherfucker. But I needed Ilya to get that one for me, because actually, since I started making pick videos specifically, I will say this, I'll acknowledge the curse. I had a curse on me. I hadn't had a correct main event pick in all of my videos, and it was actually getting to me, because I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, if anything, I found the main events like almost not easier to pick, but like less like volatile in a sense. I don't know, but then I started making pick videos and it started going downhill real quick. But Ilya, thank you for breaking that curse, my brother. Thank you very much. If you watched this video to this point, I really appreciate it. Please like the video if you like the picks. Dislike the video if you dislike the video itself. Subscribe if you want to see more. Please let me know your picks. Let me know if I'm tweaking. Please. Hey, if you want to know a little bit more, ask me anything, man. Like, hope you enjoyed the fights. They're on in a couple hours. Much love and big kiss.